There we go. Thank you very much. I'm State Representative Vic Williams. I want to thank you to the Patriots and Tea Party group for having this here today. I've served you for the last 4 years in the Arizona State Legislature. I'm looking forward to answering your questions, but also discussing a little bit about my background as a business owner, small business owner, and for the last 20 plus years. Community service work I've been doing here in Pima County as well as Los Angeles, Southern California, where I was born and raised in over the last 19 years. My background as a father, and of course my legislative experience and what my vision is for Pima County, where we need to go, what changes we need to make this a more prosperous county for jobs, for job development. So I'm looking forward to having that debate. Thank you very much.
All right, now Stuart McDaniel, you have 1 minute.
Thank you for having us out here. This is great. My name is Stuart McDaniel, and I am looking forward to making a positive difference here in Pima County. In reducing the size and scope of government, we need to do that at every level, but starting here in Pima County. I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm a conservative here in the race. I'm a businessman. I've never run for office before. And we can't afford to continue to elect politicians or political insiders and expect anything different. I'm part of this community. I've been here. I've been working in the real estate finance area, in part of the Chambers of Commerce, active within my church. I've got a 13-year-old daughter, and I'd like for her to have better opportunities here. We've got too many of our kids who go off to school at the U of A, and they leave to get jobs elsewhere. We need to become a business-friendly environment here in Pima County, and I plan to do that, and I'll provide that leadership here for all of you, and I'm looking forward to representing you. Thank you.
Okay. Now we go to Allie Miller. You have 1 minute.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. This is great to have such a great turnout. Thank you to the Patriots. My name is Allie Miller, and I am running because I believe we need a serious change in Pima County. I've been going to the meetings for 5 years. I didn't just start going recently. And what I've seen down there is a whole lot of cronyism and a whole lot of backroom deals going on that we need to stop. I have a master's degree in business administration from the University of Arizona. I also have a bachelor's in finance from the University of Arizona. I have 30 years business experience. I worked in the aerospace and semiconductor industries. I worked for Intel Corporation as a systems engineer. I believe my business background in the corporate world is what we need for Pima County. Pima County is not a small business. We keep hearing about small business. It's a $1.3 billion operation. There's 6,000 employees. So we need to have people that have experience in that type of environment to make a big difference in Pima County. My name's Allie Miller, and I look forward to the discussion this evening. Thank you for coming.
And now Mike Hellon, 1 minute introduction.
Good evening. For most of the last 30 years, I've earned my living forcing government bureaucrats to do things they don't want to do. I've represented major national corporations on complicated tax matters in 18 states. I have personally forced taxing jurisdictions 12 times in 5 different states to change their regulations because they were not complying with the law. I've earned my living doing this. I know how to do it. I know how to change government because I know how government works. I served 8 years on the Pima County Merit Commission. That means that I decided cases involving complex personnel matters involving the Sheriff's Department, the Pima County Attorney's Department, the hospital, the Health Department. The sheriff was so unhappy with one of my decisions, he took it all the way to the state Supreme Court. They upheld me 5-0. I know how to deal with government. I know how to deal with bureaucracies. I know how to make them do what they have to do in spite of their inclination not to. Thank you very much.
Okay, let me just remind you, I'm going to start with the questions, and they get 1 minute response time. And again, you get the 3 cards there if you want to do a 30-second rebuttal. But if you're called by name, you have 30 seconds to then rebut without using a card. We're going to start with Vic, and we'll go down the same order for this first round of questions. With current economic losses and state shared revenue decreases, how would you prioritize county services, and what departments would you cut or reduce funding in order to provide a balanced budget without increasing taxes?
Well, we would have to cut services across the board, but we have to make sure that we focus in on essential services in Pima County. Highway infrastructure, is absolutely critical. We have to make sure that we invest into the services that we're going to need for this community. What we did, in the Arizona legislature, we made cuts across the board, and we're going to have to go in, take a look at departments, ask them to consolidate. We did that at a state level. I know that we can do that at a county level. I would probably say as well that county management, county administration is top-heavy in employees. Might have to ask people to resign early, might have to have layoffs, but it depends on what those numbers come in at and if we start having shortfalls. So with that, that's my answer.
We need to reprioritize our spending in general across the board. We need to cut spending across the board. Our roads are a priority, and they have to be done. It'd be taken care of. We are top heavy. 190 employees making over $100,000 a year here in Pima County, as compared to 120 at the White House. Something's wrong. We can do better than that. We need to grow our economy by bringing in businesses that can pay into the tax base so that we have money for all of our priorities we need to take care of. And we can't keep doing that just by shuffling money around. We need to grow our economy. In order to do that, we need to reduce the regulations, reduce the red tape, and roll out the red carpet to the job creators. And we cannot continue to castigate the job creators and expect there to be jobs. So, in essence, by doing that, by welcoming businesses instead of chasing them out of town and raising our overall tax revenue. Thank you.
Just a minute, Ally.
Reset.
I'm gonna read this thing.
Do you want to repeat the question? Okay, it was kind of a long question.
Yeah.
With current economic losses and state shared revenue decreases, how would you prioritize county services, and what departments would you cut or reduce funding in order to provide a balanced budget without increasing taxes?
Well, the first thing that I believe in is zero-based budgeting. I do not believe in across-the-board cuts. I believe you need to look at the departments and see where the cuts need to be done. You don't do across-the-board cuts. Some areas may need increases, other areas may need to be decreased. The other thing that I don't believe is caps on salaries. I think if someone is doing their job and they're doing a good job, they should be paid accordingly. So I'm not a person who wants to cap salaries, but I also believe that we need pay for performance. If you're not performing, then you need to go. I also believe that we need to streamline the government and work on consolidations of departments. And that's one thing that I've done in my experience in the business world is I've worked on consolidations and streamlining processes, and I have that experience. I know how to do it. I know how to get it done. And I think those are things that we need to start with at the county to cut the budget. Thank you.
We're resetting the clock here.
Yeah, go ahead.
You ready?
Yep.
We do have a balanced budget, keep that in mind right now. Guy by the name of Carmine DeBonis runs developmental services. And when the economy started to falter, he downsized his department 65%. And I said, yeah, but Carmine, when the economy comes back, what's going to happen? He said, I never again will need all the people we used to have. We've changed how we do business. I believe if you set the tone at the very top, at the board level, and instruct your managers that that's the kind of performance you're looking for, we can do that throughout all of county government. But understand one thing, there isn't a human being sitting up here that can go direct one staff member at Pima County to do anything. There's a law against it. We have to persuade Chuck to do what you want him to do. And the first thing Chuck does is count to 3. So you've got to count to 3 before he does, and you got to get your 3 votes. By the way, we only need a 5% reserve to maintain a good tax rate. Sorry.
All right, thank you. The second question, we'll start with Stuart. What is the operational budget for Pima County in 2013, and what will you do to meet the financial requirement that Pima County is facing? Right in front of you.
Right at $1.2 billion, a little over that. And in order to meet that budget currently, is what you're asking?
Yes.
As far as our tax revenues currently, I would, I guess I'm not quite understanding what I would do moving forward. Future budgets would have to include, I guess I'm not understanding meeting where we are for 13.
I guess what are you going to do to make sure that we have the money that's there to pay for services?
All right. Well, we need to cut spending. The $700 million that is in the communications department, which is nothing more than a mouthpiece for our Chuck Huckleberry and others, needs to go away. We need to continue to grow our economy. The taxpayers, the business owners, we're the ones paying taxes, and we need to grow that and bring in more businesses in order to do that.
Okay. Now we're going to go to Ally. Ally, we already obviously, unless you think of something different, the operational budget for Pima County in 2013. What are you going to do to meet the financial requirement that Pima County is facing?
Well, by the financial requirement is meeting the budget and making sure that we're not overrunning the budget. What I would like to do is put financial controls in place. Right now, there's not a lot of financial controls, especially on the bond projects. That really concerns me. Before they start those projects, they're not doing getting fixed price bids and making sure that those are monitored throughout the process. That's obvious by the overruns on those projects. As far as the operating budget, they need to make sure that their reviews monthly, and that that's my position, is that we need to start doing reviews monthly to make sure that we're meeting the budget, we're not going to overrun the budget, and we need to create jobs. So that's a no-brainer. We need to start bringing business into Pima County to increase the tax base and start getting more money coming in. And if we're more business friendly, we're going to bring in more jobs. That's going to increase the tax base, and we're going to have more tax revenue to meet with the budget. Thank you.
Ready? The current budget, the tax rate anticipates sufficient revenues to run the current budget. In fact, we anticipate that the economy is going to contract a little bit further, from 3 to 5%. That's all built into the current budget. If it gets worse, and this goes back to what I was going to say when I ran out of time last time, we need a 5% reserve in order to maintain a good credit rating. We've got a 7.5% reserve. The difference is Chuck Huckleberry's little slush fund. And so that's what you can do if you need to cut that back. And he's frankly stashed money in departments all over county government, where if you need another 100,000 here, another 100,000 there, you can go get it. And I'm with Ally on this one. I think the board has an obligation to take a closer personal interest in the monthly expenses and the monthly revenues, and make sure that we're spending the way the budget anticipates. Thank you.
All right, let's pass it down to Vic.
Vic didn't get it.
No, Ally gets it.
Vic
I
got it.
didn't get a chance to answer.
Vic has to answer.
We repeat the question. So
Sure, you got it. What is the operational budget for Pima County in 2013, and what will you do to meet the financial requirement that Pima County is facing?
Well, I think Stuart hit it on the head. It's about $1.233 billion. What am I going to do? Well, I'm not going to raise taxes if we fall short. We'll reduce spending in the state, or pardon me, in the county administration level. And one thing I do want to say, Health and Human Services, I hope that we can take a good, hard look at Health and Human Services, find out where we have waste, misuse, fraud, and abuse, and start reducing spending there, consolidating, getting more efficiencies on that. So I think the answer is pretty simple, pretty plain. In the short term, not going to raise taxes, and you have to review a monthly or quarterly level, start to look at your trends, revenue trends coming in. We've done this at the state legislature. I'll do this as a county supervisor, and adjust as you go along. But once again, it's about reducing spending. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if we could pass the mic down to Ally, she's going to start next. And we've gone through 2 rounds, and nobody has thrown up a challenge card yet.
No.
Got to get ready for the NFL season.
Wait for the good for the last.
I know. All right, question number 3. What is your specific plan to attract new businesses to Pima County?
My plan is, first of all, we need to get a good group. We need to get rid of TRIO because they're not doing their job. We've had them in place for 6 years, and we've been paying one gentleman a salary of $313,000 a year. I would defund TRIO. Why are we paying someone that is not performing? So we need to have a good economic development director, and we need to make sure that that person is out there working to bring jobs into Pima County. One of the things that I would like to do is to put a moratorium on the impact fees And that is happening across the country in counties and cities all over the country right now. So if we're going to be competitive, we need to be able to do that as well. And the impact fees are obviously way too high right now, because if you know the right consultant or the right lawyer, you can get your impact fees taken down to, 2/3. I heard one gentleman went from $300,000 to $100,000. And we need to have a business-friendly environment. We've got to stop putting up roadblocks. We've got to reduce regulation and make sure that we're helping people come to Pima County. Thank you.
I agree. We've gained about 800 jobs in Pima County in the last 3 years. Maricopa County's gained 45,000. Anybody who thinks we've got an efficient economic development program just doesn't know what's going on. The first thing I would do is change the image of Pima County as being hostile to business. That's my primary complaint against the board's opposition to Rosemont. The entire world thinks that Pima County does not want business and investment and does not want new jobs. That's one of the first things I would try to change at that board level, and I believe it's doable. I believe we can get that done. The other thing, we ought to have an office in Southern California. All those companies are getting sick and tired of California. They're flying over to Texas. I think we have an office over there. We look at 500 companies we'd like to have in Southern Arizona, and we start working on them, and if you work hard, we'll get 12 or 15 of them in the next 2 or 3 years, and we will start to expand our economy.
Okay, let's pass it down to Vic. Again, what's your specific plan to attract new businesses to Pima County?
Let's talk a little bit about Northwest Pima County, what's going on here. I understand that Pima County has not overall been creating jobs for the last few years. Northwest Pima County, however, is the exception. Take a look what's going on with our bioscience industry just within a few miles of here. We have a couple of thousand employees that now work with the bioscience industry. We have everything in place, from state regulatory policy to Innovation Park here in Oro Valley. We have a couple of anchor stores that are continue to bring in jobs and continue to bring in prosperity. Let's take a look at the vision of Marana and what's going on there with third-party logistics, rail transportation, air transportation, annexation into southern Pinal County, and creating that hub of logistics. And those are things that we need to work on. We have a large optics proprietary industry in southern Arizona. We need to work and focus in on those. Thank you very much.
I think that Pima County can do a better job with better partnering with the U of A Science and Tech Park to encourage entrepreneurship here, to keep our graduates from the U of A here in Tucson. Right now, most of the kids leave to go get jobs elsewhere. We see the spin-offs that happen here. It's down the road with Ventana. It happened just because of that. Also, by replicating the tax abatements that were very successful in bringing in Roche and Sanofi, Aventis down the street here, that can be replicated, and the schools were held harmless. So those are a lot of jobs, and it's changing the dynamic here in Oro Valley, and that's critical. And also, waving the flag of business here, that is so critical to become business friendly and have somebody from the business community on that board instead of just having another politician on that board. Thank you.
Okay, if we can pass the microphone down to Mike. And by the way, does anybody here own a business? Anybody build a business themselves?
Government did. The government helped.
Just curious. Just curious. Anybody here have the government build them a business?
Yeah, but I got the road to get there.
Oh, the road, that's right. Okay, now let's get serious again.
And the rent.
Okay, question number 4, starting with Mike Hellon down there. It's related. Do you believe TRIO has met the expectations and delivered the jobs that Pima County contracted with them to deliver? Why or why not? And should we continue the relationship with TRIO, yes or no?
I'm going to take a couple of seconds and say Barack Obama was nowhere in sight when I was having to cover payrolls over 20 years. No, TRIO has not done a good job. I mean, the figures speak for themselves. Arizona has created 69,000 jobs in the last 3 years. Maricopa had 45,000 of them. Pima County had 800 of them. And I happen to know that TRIO takes credit for some things that other people have done. I think we need to take a hard look at it. I'm not sure we're getting anything for our money. I don't want to necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not one who says, you know, you put me in there and I'm going to fight to defund them. But I want to have a regional meeting with Marana, Oro Valley, Tucson, Sahuarita, the Pima County, and some of the major business people and evaluate exactly what's been done right, what's been done wrong, and do we have to completely defund them and go in a new direction. I'm willing to have that conversation.
Okay, before we have the next answer, Ally, you had a rebuttal card?
Yeah.
Okay, and you handed that over?
What?
Did that happen? Okay. Okay, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal now.
Okay, Mike, I can't believe that you will allow an organization to continue to be funded after 6 years of failure. They have created maybe 4,000 jobs, 4,600 jobs, and about 40% of those are $10 an hour call center jobs. How long do they have to prove to us that they're failures before we stop and say, enough? We've got to get rid of this group and get somebody that has competence and to be able to go after the jobs that we need to bring to Pima County. And just sitting back and saying, yeah, let's give them 5 more years isn't not going to work.
Okay. Oh, rebuttal card now to Mike before we go on.
Oh, that's right. I get my card back.
Oh, good call. It's a new game to me. It's hard to keep up with the rules.
I didn't say anything about giving them 5 years. I think I probably agree with your assessment, but I haven't delved into the details enough to draw that conclusion myself. And very frankly, some people whose judgment I respect, who have been a lot closer to the situation than I have, tell me that there are some good things and it is salvageable. I just want to take a look before I make that decision.
Okay, now we go down to Vic. For the original question, which is, do you believe TRIO has met the expectations and delivered the jobs that Pima County contracted with them to deliver? Why or why not? Should we continue the relationship with TRIO, yes or no?
I don't believe TRIO has met the expectations. From my level, I don't believe it's met the expectations of our community and what they've done. Quite frankly, I think that anyone who serves on this board, I think any one of us here on today, can be excellent ambassadors for Pima County. Look, our bioscience industry, I talk a lot about that. Our bioscience industry is just poised to absolutely take off right now. There are 750 bioscience companies in Southern California that we should be asking, come here to Southern Arizona, take a look what we have for operations, what we have for a legislative environment, for a natural beauty, with the relationship with the U of A, that $800 million a year, multi-billion-dollar a year university, Grant University. But one thing as well, I would certainly look to get out of our relationship with TRIO, but once again, that has to be a consensus of at least 3 votes, or we have to see immediate turnaround TRIO and some positive results. But I think it's overly bureaucratic, I think it's over political, and I do not think it's good money at this time. We need to readdress.
Okay, Stuart?
Well, Marana got out of the TRIO business and they're doing just fine. And I would have to agree with that. No, they have not met expectations. And in order to pay the salaries that we're paying at this point, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't pencil out. I've actually gotten on a plane and sat down with the CEO from a company and helped to bring a company here to Tucson. And they're still hiring. I know how that works, and I think that electeds can do that. And we can look at how the mayor of Phoenix does. He takes a city manager out, and he goes to Northern California and talks to these tech companies that are overtaxed and overregulated and entices them in, and they're moving to Phoenix. We don't have that here. And they're not using that as a TRIO. This is the mayor of Phoenix and the city manager goes out and gets on a plane and does that. I think that's the role of the electeds to do that. And if we have some business leaders to go with them, that's fine, but it doesn't have to be a paid thing from the counties and the cities. Thank you.
Okay, before we go to Ally, we have a rebuttal card thrown by Vic, who has 30 seconds for rebuttal.
I just want to add to my point, and look, all of us whoever is elected here, we need to be the #1 salesman for Pima County and going out and shaking hands. Sometimes government forgets to ask. Ask people, come to Southern Arizona. Ask people to come here and visit what we have. And we have a lot of assets when people come here, staying in our resorts, having an opportunity to see this environment. But we need to get on, like Stuart was saying, get on a plane, go out and ask, shake a hand, invite people to come to Southern Arizona, see what our assets are. We have a lot of them that would string together, especially in Northwest Pima County, and how we export that throughout the region. Thank you.
Okay, and now finally, Allie gets to give her answer after rebutting.
All right, Trio is a failure as far as I'm concerned. Marana did get rid of them in 2007, and they're bringing in jobs. We need to hire somebody who is competent and reports to the Board of Supervisors. Outsourcing or having these various boards, commissions, and committees, and all the responsibility going out to them is not working. It's obvious. We've got to bring the responsibility, the reporting responsibility back to the board and make sure that we're overseeing that, because this is what's happening is they're off doing their own thing, Trio is, and nobody pays any attention until there's a scandal. There was the drunken in San Diego, and all of a sudden we started hearing about it. Did we hear anything from the Board of Supervisors about Trio prior to that? No one was talking about it. So we have to thank the gentleman that went out and had the good time over there in San Diego for bringing this to our attention. And I still firmly believe that they've had 6 years of failure. They've got a strategic plan that looks good, but they failed, and we need to make a change here in Pima County. Thank you.
Okay, 4 questions down. Now let's pass the mic all the way back to Vic for question 5. How will you be transparent, accessible, and accountable to your constituents' needs and input? And what changes, if any, would you make to the time and the format of the public meetings that are currently held?
Accessibility, that's something that's been a hallmark of what I've done for the last 4 years in the Arizona State Legislature. I've worn out a lot of shoe leather going door to door talking with people. I've clips going to 14,000 homes. I've had discussions with about 5,000 people on their doorsteps. You know, for about the last year and a half, I've been doing a newsletter a couple of times per month and try to make accessible on that. You take a look at my literature, take a look at my website. My mobile phone line is there. It surprises a lot of constituents when they call me and they say, can I speak with Representative Williams? And they're speaking to me on this cell phone right here. It's my one and only phone line. It's on every single piece of literature. Staying open and transparent is key. I've attended about 1,400 public events since I was first elected back in 2008 as your state representative. I've spoken in front of 10, 12,000 people, and I have a reputation for listening, for reaching out and listening to people. And Garrett, we did that in that piece of legislation on the internet stuff. We listened to folks. Thank you.
Okay, Stuart, how will you be transparent, accessible, and accountable to your constituents' needs and input? And what changes, if any, would you make to the time and the format of the public meetings that are currently held?
I'm very accessible. You can always reach me at any time. My cell phone is on everything. And I am at every function. I am one of the most hardest working people. I am everywhere. And I'm part of this community. And I will continue to be. That's something that we certainly haven't seen from our board as far as being at events that are critical to our future here. When the F-35 hearings were here back in February, not one of our locally elected officials were there to stand up for us, and I would certainly be there at those types of events. And as far as transparency, what you see is what you get. It's who I am, and I don't have anything to hide. And as far as changing the meeting itself, well, we need to get 3 votes to do just that. I think the biggest issue is people to show up. When you go to meetings, there are very few people actually there because they are in the middle of the day, or in the mornings rather. And if it's in the evenings, perhaps it gets more, but we'll see.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to Allie Miller. How will you be transparent, accessible, accountable to your constituents' needs and input? What changes, if any, would you make to the time and the format of the public meetings that are currently held?
Well, one of the things that I'd like to do is hold town halls, maybe quarterly town halls, so that people that are not able to get to the meetings during the day could come to a town hall and have their concerns addressed. Another thing I'd like to do is make sure that when you're holding the meetings, instead of starting the meeting with executive session. Maybe try to hold that to the end, because every time I go to the Board of Supervisor meeting, it seems like they go into executive session for an hour sometimes, and people are left sitting. You've got to show a little respect for the taxpayers that show up at these meetings. Another thing I'd like to do is make sure that we are asking the right questions in the meeting so that people in the audience can understand. And another great thing that's going on, I went to a meeting this week in one of the neighborhood associations. They have meetings about the roads. There's one of the neighborhoods that have been having that meeting for a long time, and Supervisor Day is hosting that meeting. I'd like to continue that tradition because I think it's great to have people active and interested in what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, now to Mike Hellon. How will you be transparent, accessible, and accountable to your constituents' needs and input? And what changes, if any, would you make to the time and the format of the public meetings that are currently held?
Yeah, I like the idea of town halls. I had a meeting with several neighborhood association groups over the deteriorating streets and roads. I think we could have some rolling town halls on different subjects. But we're all Republicans up here. We have Republican district meetings every month, and a supervisor can go to the district meetings, take input, what's on your mind, what do you want to know about, go back, have staff research and respond. This can become a dialogue. The other thing I would do is I'd like to see, now you got to keep in mind, there's not one of us up here who unilaterally can make these kinds of changes. You've got to get another couple of supervisors to go along. But I'd like to start to hold monthly strategy meetings. One of the problems with Pima County, there's no long-term plan, no vision, no strategy. We know what we're doing today, next week, next month, but we don't have any idea what we want to be 5 years from now. And I think the board needs to start working on that and have citizen input.
Okay,
That was pretty good.
that's it. 5 questions in, 5 to go. Everybody having fun so far? You learning? You okay? I just want to make sure everything's all right. We had a little bit of action with some rebuttal cards. Now this ought to be good. Stuart, you're going to have the mic. You're going to start off this time. The county recently poured the shell foundation for a new courthouse without the funds to pay for the completion of the building. Yeah. Try building a house or a business that way. Do you support the current bonding policy? Why or why not?
2 separate questions. No, we cannot continue to spend money agree to spend money that's not simply not there yet. It's not possible to do that. That's not fiscally responsible. We have to turn that around. We have to be accountable to the taxpayers. That's simply not right. The current bonding policy, I don't see any appetite for any more bonding. We simply are overtaxed at this point. Our tax rates are about 3.5 times higher than what they are in Phoenix. I don't see it happening. So no, that needs to be reviewed, absolutely. Looking at what happened with Marana and having to try to get relief from the legislature is an issue of failed leadership. If we can't start working together and to try to solve these issues without having to go into legislation from the state, we're doing something wrong. We need to turn that around.
Okay, now let's pass it to Allie Miller. Again, the county, I want to repeat it because you might not believe it. The county recently poured the shell foundation for a new courthouse without the funds to pay for completion of the building. Do you support the current bonding policy? Why or why not?
I was at that meeting and I spoke out against the county transferring $23 million out of the general fund to help pay for that project. So there's the shell game with your money. You think you're bonding for $76 million? Well, now they're transferring $23 million that should have gone to our roads maybe, but they transferred it into the courthouse project. And all we're going to get at the end of that is a shell of a building, and they're going to come back wanting to pick more money out of your pockets. They're going to ask for $50 million more at least. Every time they give a number, it always goes up. The other thing I'd like to do, the bonding policy, in my opinion, the voters vote, and then the Board of Supervisors with a 3-2 vote can redirect that money. I would like to change that part of the policy so that they aren't able to redirect that money. Another thing that I'd like to do is make sure that before they actually start a project, that they make sure they have the bids and fixed price contracts, because I don't understand how they're overrunning the way they are. We need to have program reviews every month on these projects so that we know if there's a schedule or cost variance. Thank you.
Okay, Mike Hellon, do you need me to repeat the question or you got it?
No, I think Hello. I think I've got it. Actually, trying to redirect the money is quite a bit more complicated. If you follow the problem with the street improvement project down on Broadway that caused so much trouble with this city council and Steve Kozaczyk, they have committed millions of dollars to a project that's not needed. And that's the problem with the process right now. Steve has correctly identified the problem. However, there's not currently a solution. Once they've committed the money, they have to spend it on that project. I would like to see us change the bonding authority so that you don't commit $50 million on something 6 years down the road, assuming that certain things are going to happen in the interim. If they don't happen, you've got to be able to make changes to reflect the current reality. That's a very important change that I think would help us avoid some of these problems in the future.
Okay, let's pass it down to Vic to finish up the question about the shell foundation being poured for a new courthouse without funds to pay for completing the building. Do you support the current bonding policy? Why or why not?
Well, the courthouse is going to probably be a mess that the next supervisor is going to have to deal with over the years to come. I think Pima County is trying to give the city of Tucson a run for their money when it comes to being incompetent on that one. Moving forward on bonding, I would say that we need to look at bonding. I don't have an issue with bonding. You know, bonding is what, for infrastructure, roads, highways, wastewater treatment, water delivery systems, utilities, what made this country great in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. We went out and bought essential services that built our economy. And that's what we need to stick with. We need to ensure, if we are going to bond and bond more, that it goes into things that will make our quality of life better and also attract industry. That's a big key, and that's where government can play a large part in attracting industry. People take a look. What are your essential services here? Do I want to start my business? Right now, they don't. So if we are going to bond and bond in the future, let's bond for things that will help us create jobs such as infrastructure, roads, schools, hospitals, and let's make sure we do it right, we do it accurately, and get the job done.
Okay, let's move on to question 7. We're going to start with Allie. And we are going to stick with bonds. Do you support the forensic financial audit of Pima County bonds? Why or why not?
Yes, I do support that audit because it's all smoke and mirrors down there. Like I said, $23 million got moved out of the general fund into the bond projects. That is taking money from our primary operating budget and moving it over there, and the taxpayers don't know what's going on with their money. So I think we need to, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
Yeah, do you support the forensic financial
okay.
audit of Pima County
We need
bonds?
to make sure that we're getting auditors in. I'd like to see forensic audits in the future. We need to follow the money and see where it's gone because the taxpayers don't know where the money's going right now. And it is a very serious issue, in my opinion, if we don't make sure that the money is getting where the voters vote for these projects. And we need to make sure that we're following up and getting the money where it's supposed to be getting to, instead of just letting it go. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Mike. Mike,
Reset.
do you support the forensic financial audit of Pima County bonds? Why or why not?
Yes, I do, but for slightly different reasons. The real problem with the bonds relate back to the 1997 bonds. And to her credit, Ann Day brought in the Auditor General back then to do an audit, and they cleaned up a lot of the mess, and that caused some changes in how they operated the bonding programs in 2004, 2006. Now, I understand there's a lot of frustration and a lot of concern about the projects, how the money's being spent, is it being diverted or is it not being diverted? I will anticipate that when this forensic audit is done on the 2004 and 2006 projects, you're not going to find a lot of problems. I think they've cleaned most of that up. But that's how we're going to find out. We bring the auditors in, they have a close look, they report, and then we can all go forward either with a roadmap for correction or a higher level of confidence about what's going on.
Okay, let's pass it on down to Vic.
Garrett, can I get a clarification? Is this
Sure.
the audit that the state legislature pushed through?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, this year in the state legislature, we pushed through an initiative, a law that we would audit Pima County, and that's something that primarily generated out of the town of Marana because of what's going on. And look, perception often becomes reality in politics, and the perception is that Pima County mismanages its bond money. Huge problems in the 97 bond issuing, and there's just this perception that Pima County takes bond money, transfers it, and shifts it around. So yes, I fully endorse that auditing. Hopefully it comes back and there's not going to be problems. But if there is, hopefully we can then start to identify what those problems are. But again, when it comes to bonding, we need to focus in on bonding that's going to go for infrastructure, that's going to help economic development, and that's going to be key. Thank you.
Okay, and finally to Stuart, do you support the forensic financial audit of Pima County bonds? Why or why not?
It's the law right now, and yes, at this point, it's a good idea to know where we stand. And I think that at that point, if money's been mismanaged, we'll know, and if not, we can move forward with confidence. So that's a positive thing for us to do, is to move forward. Absolutely. We have to be transparent. We have to be accountable to taxpayers. I've been going to the bond advisory meetings and seeing all the different people seated, and everybody has their little piece, and everybody wants their piece of the pie of taxpayer monies. So absolutely, we do have to do that. We have to be accountable to us as taxpayers, and I'll certainly support that, yes.
Okay, thank you. 7 questions down. Let's pass the microphone over to Mike, because we're going to start with Mike in this round. By the way, I just want to thank everybody for not dressing like occupiers. Big difference. Big difference.
How do you know we're not?
Oh, I can tell. I can tell. All right, let's start with Mike. Long sentence of question here. Our elected representatives are deferring policy decisions to non-elected appointed administrators to remove themselves from culpability for the end results. What's your view on the working relationship between Chuck Huckleberry and the Board of Supervisors, and who should be held accountable to the taxpayers in this relationship?
Well, the board has to be. Chuck Huckleberry is a very smart man. And the first thing he does in the morning is count to 3. And if he gets 3 votes for what he wants to do, he's off and running, and that's the way the county operates. The board is negligent in 2 respects, in my opinion. They have abrogated their responsibility to set policy and to set guidelines for Pima County, and they let Chuck do it. And they do it for 2 reasons. One, because it's easier, and because he likes to do it. And if he does it, they don't have to. But very frankly, they do it for a second reason, because they let him take all the barbs. And they sit back and behind, and they don't want to be held accountable for what's going on down there. They tend to blame it on Chuck. You can't have it both ways. If you're going to step up and you're going to ask the public to elect you to a position of trust and policy-making responsibility, you have to do it, and you have to work with the other members of the board.
Thank you. Let's pass the mic all the way down to Vic. Again, our elected representatives are deferring policy decisions to non-elected appointed administrators to remove themselves from culpability for the end results. What's your view on the working relationship between Chuck Huckleberry and the Board of Supervisors, and who should be held accountable to the taxpayers in this relationship?
Well, the first part of that statement of the question kind of ties in back to question 5 on accessibility. And when you have a supervisor who's willing to be accessible, put their name out there, write dozens of op-ed pieces that I've done as an elected member of the state legislature to let people know where I stand on positions, you then assume responsibility for your actions and what you're doing. And that's something that we don't have at the Pima County Board of Supervisors. It seems that people get elected to the board and kind of blend into the woodwork, and Chuck Huckleberry seems to be the front man for everything. I promise you this right now, folks, that's not something I will do. If I'm elected, I will continue to be very vocal, very open, very accessible, and my viewpoints and positions will be there for you to understand and be able to converse with me on that. Secondly, on that, boy, I forgot my point, but I'm going to let go there. But, once again, we're going to have to, so with that being said, being out there, being vocal, being out in front on issues, and then you'll get better policy from that. Thank you.
Stuart, if you need me to repeat the question, I will.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
We need to hold our elected officials accountable. Right now, sure, they're deferring to Chuck, and this is by design, absolutely. But it's up to us to hold our elected officials accountable, period. And if we're not doing that, it's our fault. And right now, need a crowbar to get people out of office. And most of the folks, as I've been knocking on thousands of doors, don't even know who the Board of Supervisors are or what they do. And that comes down to our electeds being a part of our community and showing up and holding town halls or being at events. And that's something that will certainly be there and do just that. And so, sure, we can call Chuck the boogeyman all we want, but that's not going to change anything. We have to hold our elected officials accountable. Thank you.
Okay, before we move on, there's a flag on the field. Vic wants to rebut. He has 30 seconds. Are you ready, timekeeper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to talk about getting a crowbar people out of office, and this is the point that I failed to remember a moment ago. Look, as a member of the Arizona State Legislature, I opted out of the state government retirement program. I've made my money in the private sector. I'll make my money again after government in the private sector. I'll never take a government pension, and I will be accountable that way, because as you get in office and you stay in office, all of a sudden that pension after 10 or 12 years becomes attractive, and it might skew how you think. It won't skew me because I'm not going to receive one, and that's something to keep me viable. Thank you.
Okay, let's pass it down to Allie, the final person on this question. Do you need me to repeat it, or you think you have it?
I think I got it.
Okay.
I am a person who believes that the Board of Supervisors should be held accountable, and they should stop deferring to Chuck Huckleberry. And what we need to do is get a board elected that is willing to take Mr. Huckleberry and let him go. He's been running that county too long. I believe that we have 80 boards, commissions, and committees in Pima County. That is deferring the responsibility there as well. I don't see the Board of Supervisors at these meetings when there's commission meetings and being responsible. Their names should be on these committees, and they should be overseeing what's going on with these committees. Instead, they defer it just like TRIO, and then you don't hear about it until there's a problem. And who do they blame? TRIO. It's the Board of Supervisors who we should hold accountable, and not the individual groups that they've deferred their responsibilities to. I've been down there speaking out a long time about these issues, and I plan to continue doing it and bringing it to light for the public to see whether I'm the only Republican on the board or not. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. We are moving now to a question. I will give it to Vic. Vic gets the first crack at this one. The town of Marana and Pima County Board of Supervisors have been battling over the town of Marana being allowed to provide their own wastewater system to their citizens via signed legislation by the governor last year. If you are the successful candidate, what will be your recommendation to Chuck Huckleberry and the Board of Supervisors on this issue?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's something I've been in the middle of for the last 3 years as a member of the legislature. I helped push forward the wastewater treatment bill, SB 1171. It's something I sponsored, it's something I voted for, and it's something I believe in. And I'm going to talk a little bit about wastewater treatment. Look, all of our growing communities, what you have here is you have growing communities, Oro Valley, Marana, Sahuarita, of course, Orion's or wastewater treatment. You have Coronadate, Tucson, Vail, they're all growing. And it seems that the Pima County government wants to retain or restrict this growth and the release that's going on right here. We have to look, and I look at Oro Valley and Marana being in this district up here as they're growing kids. They're trying to get out of the house. They're moving forward, and we have to work with them. And I'm on that board. I'm fully in support of Marana having their autonomy in wastewater treatment. As they move forward and grow into Pinell County, it's going to be something maybe economically that doesn't make sense today, but in 30, 40 years, people are going to ask you, how could you not have done that? Because it's going to be essential as Marana grows and becomes the economic powerhouse of southern Arizona.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Stuart.
The Section 10 amendments regarding the wastewater issue should have been looked at the technical merits instead of the going on political. This came down to personalities and a failure of leadership on both sides. And to have our legislators have to step in, and the monies that were spent in litigation, millions of dollars of our money, because we can't get along. In business, we have to be able to move the ball down the field to get something done. And we have to do that. We have to work with each other and work with the communities that are surrounding, because we're all part of Tucson here. We're all part of Pima County. We can't continue to battle each other like this. There has to be a solution without having to resort to going to the legislature and going to the courts. We simply can't afford it. The money is not there, and that's a lack of leadership. And that needs to be turned around, and I will certainly provide new vision and new fresh leadership on that board. Thank you.
Okay, let's hand it on down to Ally.
Okay, yes, we need to get a mediator in here and get some moving forward, get the ball rolling down the field. Marana was absolutely, I do not blame them for suing, because Chuck Huckleberry wasn't allowing sewer hookups for 13 business projects that Marana was trying to move down the field, and that is about control, folks. It's an ego power trip on his part, and the Board of Supervisors have failed all of us because they did not stop him and they didn't step in and make sure that we weren't in this type of relationship, this competitive relationship, instead of collaborating with Marana, because Marana is growing and bringing business. Why weren't we working with them as a county to help them and move forward? And Marana has a right to have the control of their sewer plant, and I totally agree with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now down to Mike.
Well, we've got to separate what you would design from the scratch if you could and where we are right now. The problem between Marana and Pima County has become a personality problem between the mayor of Marana and the county manager. I blame the county in the first instance for not being sensitive to Marana's need for the effluent and for the hookups that Ally was talking about. I would say let Marana have the wastewater plant, but they've got to pay for it. They've got to pay the county's fully amortized costs, whatever they've got into it. They can't get it on the cheap. In the long run, the future of wastewater management is regional. It's not every little city standing on its own. But we've got to solve this problem first. We've got to solve the problem of Pima County being an adversary with the cities instead of being a helpful and cooperative and supportive of the cities. We get that done, then we can go into the future.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to the final question. Stuart gets the microphone. And before we end it, I just want to say thank you to the four candidates. You've all done very well and followed the rules. And I tell you, it's tough to stick your neck out on the line and be in politics, especially, I mean, look, everyone's staring you down right here. It's a lot of pressure. You have people like me on the radio that just want to tear at you all the time just for my own personal gain and entertainment.
Can I switch jobs with this?
You want to do that? You like to work for cheap, huh? All right, final question involves roads, and I think this is obviously one of the biggest things everyone talks about. Stuart, this is to you first. The cost of gasoline includes an 18 cents per gallon state fuel tax. This tax, along with other fees, taxes, and other sources of revenue, are collected for transportation costs, including roads. So why are the roads throughout Pima County in such deplorable condition?
Thank you. Yes, well, just 2 weeks ago, I held a press conference to stop the road raid. And I'm upset with our legislators using Pima County as a piggy bank to balance their budget. That 18 cents to fix our roads needs to stay here. We've lost nearly $35 million since 2007 to fix our roads. We certainly need to reprioritize where we're spending our roads in Pima County. That's a certainty, and we need to do a better job at that at the county level for sure. But at the same time, we need to hold our elected officials, our state representatives, and our senators, our state senators, accountable. And that's an extra $35 million that could have been used on our potholes here. And that's something that I've already started. I've already given this to most of the chambers of commerce and different business groups, and they're in support of it. And I actually sent out letters with pledges to every single candidate and current representative just for that alone. That is very important, and we need to take care of that. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go down to Ally.
One of my opponents will tell you that he brought in $10 million to the Pima County budget for this year for the roads, that it was him single-handedly out there doing it. I will tell you, when I look at the expenditures from 2012 to 2013, it only goes up by $2 million. Why is that happening? Because the county is moving money in as fast as they're putting it out. They're putting $10 million in, and they're transferring $27 million out. And there's a hit piece on your chair that I'd like to talk about with my cards at the end. But what is happening is they're using that money for secondary bonds that we should be paying with our secondary property tax rate. We should not be using HERF money to pay for bonds. And that's what they're doing, and they're playing a shell game with the money. They're moving it around, and Mr. Huckleberry is having a good old time moving that money around, and he is paying debt payments with our HERF money. That is wrong. It shouldn't be happening. And it needs to stop. And in the last 5 years, I've done an investigation here, $80 million has been raided. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Mike.
Yeah, that is part of the problem. A lot of the HERF money is dedicated to bonding. But I'm the guy who did get the $10 million that she doesn't like. And I got another $10 million out of this year's budget. For 3 years, Pima County spent zero on scheduled roadway maintenance. Zero. Total neglect by the Board of Supervisors and by the county manager. I organized, and I didn't claim I did it all by myself, I organized a bunch of homeowners association. We got hundreds of petition signatures. I told them I was coming down with it. I told them the neighbors were angry, and I called Chuck. And I said, Chuck, I'm coming after you. We've got to start doing something about the roads. I'm giving you a fair warning. He said, fine, I understand. Thanks for the heads up. By the time I got to the board, he'd found $10 million. And just so you know, go out to Los Lomitas neighborhood. Their streets have now been fixed. That's the first start. It's a huge problem. It's 20 million's a drop in the bucket. I know where to find another 20 million, but it's a long-term problem.
Okay, and finally, we go to Vic. Or Vic, do you want to do your rebuttal first?
No, I think that she...
Oh, Al, I didn't see that.
Can I use both of these?
You want to use both? We have to go to the judges for that. Is that, if you have them, you use them, so I guess you get 1 minute then.
Okay, like I said, we're only getting $2 million, and it is a false thing that you think you're getting $10 million. We're not. I've got the numbers right here. They're right off Mr. Huckleberry's charts. Now, the other thing is you will find a hit piece from the Tucson Weekly that Mr. Hellon's campaign put on your chair. That is a liberal rag, and if anybody gives any credibility to the information that is in that article, it was a hit piece by Jim Ninsel, and it is just purely because I spoke out, and I think they don't like it because I'm speaking out, I'm standing up to what is going on in the county, so they're attacking me. And then that article, I've gotten 3 of them so far, and it's very interesting to me that Mr. Hellon would distribute that to your chairs this evening and give them, and cite that as a viable source of news, because we all know what the Tucson Weekly is all about. And I think it's outrageous that you place that on the chairs. Thank you.
Okay, did you want to throw the... Oh, yeah, you did, yeah, just you were called by name. You were called by name. Sorry about that.
You can like the Weekly or not, you can like the Star or not, you can like the Wall Street Journal or not, but she was wrong. She said something occurred that didn't occur, and they checked it out, and they proved that she was simply wrong. That's what the article was all about. I didn't write it. I read it. And in this business, when you're running for public office, you need to be accountable for what you say and what you promise and what you do. And if you're not, somebody like Jim Ninsel's going to call you on it.
Okay, let's pass it down to Vic. Not that I'm biased, but I think a viable news source is KNST.
Please, very good. Please refresh me. Garrett?
You mentioned, hang on,
Ally will get another rebuttal.
because there was the name.
Yes.
Okay, let's do the rebuttal first, then we'll go to Vic, just to make sure we're keeping it straight that way. I know. You got it.
Okay, what has happened is that if you look at this bond money, it is not being spent where it's supposed to be. The road money is being spent on bonds, and that's what I cited. I said the money is not going where it is supposed to be going, and it's supposed to be going to the roads. It is not going to the roads, and that was the example I gave. And my opponent here is talking about that and just citing that as a viable news source. Does anybody ever looked and listened to that newspaper? I mean, it is just outrageous. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going down to Vic for...
Does opponent count as excuse me?
We may never go home.
I know. Yeah, everyone's opponents. Okay, let me repeat the question for the final answer. Unless there are other rebuttals, there are cards on the table. Vic, the cost of gasoline includes an 18 cents per gallon state fuel tax. This tax, along with other fees, taxes, and other sources of revenue, are collected for transportation costs, including roads. So why are the roads throughout Pima County in such deplorable condition?
It's a commitment. It's as to what are priorities. Essential services or things that are not essential. And that's something Pima County hasn't done. And just throwing $10 million at it this year or next year doesn't fix the problem. Take a look at the town we're sitting in right now, or from the town you probably came from in Marana. What are the roads like there? They're excellent because there's the commitment, and there's a commitment from general fund expenditures beyond what comes from the highway user revenue funds, the HERFs. And so folks have to make a commitment, and that's something Pima County has to do. You have to make a choice between essential services and non-essential services, and quite frankly, maintaining our roads is about essential services. And so you're going to have to divert money without raising taxes from other programs and have a long-term approach to funding our highways and highway maintenance and preservation. And there's already reports out there that have been done. The maps are there available from Pima County Department of Transportation, which are good, bad, and fair roads. Then those need to be cleaned up. Thank you.
Okay, now we are going to go to the final statements. 1 minute to summarize. Well,
Can I have a rule clarification?
okay.
I've got 3 cards left. Do I get to tack them on at the end?
Notice there are 3 jokers, though.
This was a stacked audience, I could tell.
Because you didn't use your remote. You didn't use it? I don't see why not.
Okay. Use them or lose them. So what, so I
It's going to be a longer night.
so I get 2.5 minutes?
Well, it's 30 seconds, so yeah, I guess 1.5 for that plus. We'll do that 1.5, and do you want to do, well, we're not starting with you for the closing statement, so do 1.5 now.
No, I want them at closing.
You want to,
Can I sing the Star Spangled Banner when we're done?
You can rebut something for a minute and a half.
yeah. Okay.
I'm just messing with you.
We are going to start with Ally for a closing statement for 1 minute.
Thank you all for coming tonight. My name's Ally Miller. I have a track record of challenging the status quo. Many of you may know me from challenging Rio Nuevo, what went on there, that debacle that went on there, and $230 million disappeared. I was the one down challenging the county. I wasn't sitting back watching it happen. I was down challenging the Rio Nuevo board. I was speaking out at the city council, and I was talking to people and making sure, and I wrote a letter that brought the FBI in, by the way. So we need people that will take action. It's easy to get up here and talk about all the great things you're going to do, but how many people up here have been taking action? And that's what I've been doing for 5 years, and I plan to continue down that road because that's what we need in Pima County. No more status quo, no more smoke-filled rooms that we've been hearing about, but doing business out in the open, out from behind the closed doors. And that's what I promised to you. I promised to represent you, the taxpayers, in an honest, accountable, and transparent way. And you will always have access to me, and I would greatly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, now we go to Mike. Mike Hellon for 1 minute.
Thank you. You know, I'm pretty comfortable. I've had a fairly successful life. I've lived fairly well. My golf game sucks, but everything else in my life is pretty good. I don't need this job. I don't need this job. And I don't need another line on my resume. I've done lots of interesting things with my life, and I've changed an awful lot of things for the better already over 2 decades in Pima County. I'm running because I see a potential in Pima County. If we were talking about the Tucson City Council, I pass. It's dysfunctional. If we were talking about TUSD, I pass. It's totally dysfunctional. But there's a very real, legitimate chance to bring change to the Pima County Board of Supervisors. But in order to get it done, it's going to be require somebody who has the personal credibility, who has the background and the experience to understand how government works and how you can get it changed and how you can make people who disagree with you do the right thing. I can do that.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to go to Vic Williams.
30 seconds?
No.
No, I was just.
We should have clarified, use it or lose it.
No problem. That's like many things in life as I get older. Thank you very much. I'm State Representative Vic Williams. It's been an honor to serve you in the Arizona legislature over the last 4 years. We've taken tough choices in critical times. We reduced our budget by $2.5 billion to balance our budget. We now have a surplus in the state of Arizona. Many difficult things came with that. We did sweeps. Stuart talked about the sweeps and so forth. We also did the sales tax referendum. But you know what? We made critical choices, and now we have a balanced budget. We have surpluses, and we went from the 30th largest job producer in the country now to number 7 in the United States. And we can do those kind of those actions down here in Pima County. Also, I voted for and I supported and campaigned on SB 1070. And look, I will do what I can as a county supervisor to ensure that we try to implement it at whatever level on SB 1070. I've worked closely with our bioscience industry. Right now I have a track record working with bioscience industry and creating jobs. I'll do that as your county supervisor. Please, I ask for your vote. Thank you very much. I'm Vic Williams. Go to my website, voteforvic.com. Thank you. God bless you. It's been an honor to serve, and I'm looking forward to being your county supervisor.
Thank you. And finally, thanks for letting me in on my future, Vic. Let's go finally to Stuart McDaniel for a 1-minute close.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to making a positive difference and being that conservative voice of reason on the Board of Supervisors. I have the credibility to stand up to our legislators that want to sweep our gas taxes. We can't keep doing that. Sure, we balance the budget by moving over $1.2 billion out of our education funds and putting it onto the next fiscal year, and then putting $450 million into a rainy day fund. That's just gimmicks to me. That's magic. We can't do that. We can't do that here. We shouldn't be doing it in Phoenix. I will reduce the size and scope of Pima County government. We have to do that. We have to encourage business growth here. It's one of the reasons why I've been endorsed by Congressman Trent Franks, State Senator Steve Smith, Vice Mayor Lou Waters from here in Oro Valley, and the Tucson Association of Realtors just recently endorsed me, as well as the firefighters, North Tucson Firefighter Association, as well as Old Pueblo Firefighter Association. I'm part of this community, I'm part of this business community. I know how to get things done.
Time's up.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for being a great audience. I appreciate that. Shameless